All right, welcome everybody. It is 2 o'clock and my timer is going, so I'm going to begin. Welcome to this session about Pluralsight, and we're going to talk about creating the future here. I want you to think about what you're creating today in your lives and in the lives of the organizations where you work, and whether it's intentional or not, you're creating something that will change the future trajectory of your company, the organizations that you're a part of, and ultimately technology will play a big part in that. At Pluralsight, we really see ourselves as committed to creating the creators of our technology-driven future. Like, we see ourselves as part of a very important mission for the world in bringing the technology skills that ultimately show up in people, that get translated into products and solutions that actually lift the human condition. We really see ourselves as part of something that changes the way we experience the world through technology. And as you'll see as I talk through this presentation, our platform, our products, and our services are really organized around that in the end. So when you think about what's in the way of that, like, think about how much better the world could be if there were more technology skills available today. Like, what would that be? What would that be like? And ultimately, we don't know yet, because there's a massive global technology skills gap that exists. There are more jobs available today, more demands for technology skills than our ability to fill them. And ultimately, the reason this is happening is because technology as a thing, the technology landscape is actually moving faster than our ability to learn it. So it's actually holding back, the entire human population, because we haven't organized ourselves as a human race around producing more of them. And ultimately, Jack Welch predicted this for many organizations a while ago, that if the rate of change on the outside of your company exceeds the rate of change on the inside, the end is near. It's a big problem for companies if they can't figure out how to learn technology faster and actually produce these technology skills in a way that will serve their aim, their purpose, and the reason they exist in this world. And ultimately, that's the problem we at Pluralsight aim to solve. If you look at this slide here, it demonstrates how quickly the tech landscape shifts and changes every year. Every year there's dozens of new technologies hitting the landscape that promise new capabilities, new efficiencies, the ability to move faster, deliver more, and ultimately create the things that we want to create as entrepreneurs, as creators in this world. And it's pretty daunting. If you go ask a software developer what it's like, to live in this world, you'll see that that's really what makes a lot of them tick and why they want to be here. Like, developers, especially software developers, love to learn. And they see themselves as creators. They see themselves as artists that are, aiming at solving some of the world's biggest problems. And that's why it actually happens this way. It's because of the very nature of the people that are attracted to this problem. And if you think about what this means and what it means to your business, like, you can kind of look at this and maybe see some of the things that you've adopted and some of the things you've ignored. It's, given that reality, if you look at the pace at which things are changing and the pace at which you adopt some of these things, what that ultimately creates for a developer is a knowledge half-life of about 2 years. Meaning every 2 years, they have to replace about half of what they know with new information. And that's basically the experience for a software developer. And so I would argue that the experience around learning technology, especially software development, product design skills, is fundamentally different than that of almost any other profession. Like, it's really not the same. The requirement and the demand on those individuals that hold those skills, that end up creating within the organization, is fundamentally different. The bar is higher, and we, as a human population, have to learn how to learn it faster. That's really the challenge in front of us. And ultimately, it's the companies that figure out how to acquire those people, the ones that are really attracted to learning faster, the ones that are really, at the center stage of this technology landscape, acquiring those people and keeping them and developing them, giving them a way to keep learning the technology faster and faster as it continues to increase pace is the fundamental challenge. And really the only long-term competitive advantage in today's marketplace. If you're going to compete in the tech landscape, this has to be a center piece in your overall corporate strategy. If you're not thinking about how to increase the efficiency and pace at which you learn and acquire and keep these tech skills, you're missing a big part of the picture. And it's only a matter of time before the reality of that will set in. So thinking about how to make this part of a corporate strategy is really an important thing to get right. Today, 72% of CEOs agree that over the next 3 years, what happens over the next 3 years will be more critical to their long-term success than the last 50. It's a pretty big statement. And 80% of tech CEOs today say that the availability of key skills is their top challenge. So this is a global issue. It's a board-level conversation across Fortune 1000 companies, and something that is fundamentally different in technology than in any other field. Think about what could have happened had the yellow cab companies of the world embraced technology and learned it faster. Would Uber exist? Here you have a market that's existed for decades, and the technology was there to create what Uber created. Yet for some reason, they didn't create it. A new organization did. And now it's worth billions and billions of dollars. Why? Why did that happen? Think about what's happening right now in the perishable foods market and the grocery chains. You have major companies in this massive industry who are not moving as quickly as they could with technology. And it's opening up this massive opportunity for new entrants who actually know technology really well. Think about why Amazon is able to compete so effectively with all the major grocery chains of the world. How many of you have bought food from Amazon yet? Anybody here? Okay, more than my last audience, but the number is increasing every time I do this presentation. The way this is going to shake out is pretty clear to me. It's not really a question. It's the companies that have the most effectiveness built into their technology talent strategy that are going to win. It's pretty simple. Technology is the new weapon. It's the new competitive advantage. And so if new organizations like Amazon, who have tech savviness engineered into their DNA, they can see a new market opportunity like this and move in to disrupt because the existing incumbents don't see it. They don't have it. They don't have the technology piece. And so for organizations that have existed without technology weapon, so to speak, that's the thing to be thinking about. And how do you create that technology weapon within your organization? It's through your people. And it's through the strategy that you would use to actually go acquire more and more of those people, the right people, and to develop the right skills within those people so they become the creators of your future. That's why we're talking #create the future. We really believe that it's the creators in your organization that will have the most impact on your long-term success as a company. And Pluralsight's here to serve that. We see ourselves as a company that can prevent that from happening. And ultimately, what we have to realize is that the way we've been doing this for the last several decades just doesn't work. Most companies today, even the biggest of the biggest, are still putting people in a classroom to learn these things. And guess what? That just doesn't scale at the pace we need it to. It can still be effective. Look, I did it for a decade myself. I ran around the world and taught developers how to code for 10 years of my life. And it was awesome. And I love it. And I love the human connection. And it doesn't scale. And today, with what the market needs from us, there's no way that can work to keep up with the pace of change I've been referring to for the first half of this presentation. It's a solution that doesn't work. It doesn't fit the problem anymore. And so how do we make it work? That's the question. And you're seeing a lot of new companies enter this market because of this very issue I'm describing. And Pluralsight certainly has evolved from that problem space. Like, we saw it and we recognized that, look, despite how much we love the in-person classroom experience, the professional experience, we have to find a way to do it better. A way that will truly scale and be more efficient, both from a time perspective and a cost perspective, and make it possible for the developers and these creators I'm referring to be able to move faster through the market with us. And that's ultimately what this is all about. And I believe there are three fundamental things that you have to get right to move away from the classroom and still have it work, still make it effective. And the three things come down to a content engine that keeps up with the pace of change, delivered by world-renowned experts, true authorities, content you can trust. You need a way to assess where you're at today and what you learn through that content as you engage with it over time. And you need a way to raise your hand in this virtual classroom environment to get answers to your questions. You know, for the first 5 years of Pluralsight online, when we did Pluralsight on demand, it was when we started out in the classroom and we pivoted to the online market. And the first version of Pluralsight was called Pluralsight on demand. And, you know, the first 5 years of our business, the biggest obstacle to big corporations adopting us was, well, what happens if I need to ask a question? What happens if, you know, the people in the room that I put in the room with you need to ask questions about their projects? And so we've known for a long time that there's this need for that human engagement, you know, as part of the overall learning experience. And it has to be something that scales. Pluralsight has always been committed to making sure that our online experience is one that always scales to the needs of the marketplace. And so if you have content that scales, that you can trust from credible authorities, you have an assessment engine that allows you to measure where you're at today and where you're going tomorrow, and you have a way to raise your hand and get unstuck in your learning journey when you need it, that's a viable solution to break free from the classroom. And that's one that can truly scale to the world in a digital experience. So the Pluralsight learning platform is just that. We offer those three capabilities through our content engine that comes from a network of over 1,000 expert authors around the world who are the best in their fields. We have an assessment platform that allows us to measure individual technology skills in as little as 5 minutes and give what feels like an SAT score for that skill that can then be used to guide that individual learner on their journey to where they're attempting to go. And then finally, we have a mentor network that allows a user to press a button, similar to hailing an Uber car when you need one, to find a technology expert somewhere in the world that's available right now to help you on your problem that you're dealing with. And those are the three things that Pluralsight provides. And this author network is a really key piece of it. You know, it's the authors that, for us, have made this all work. You know, these are real people. You know, people that, you know, a software developer going to a conference would hear delivering the keynote. They're the ones that are authoring the books on the subject matter. They're the ones that have the most popular blogs today. And Pluralsight goes out into the world and spearfishes for the very best people in each one of our areas. And they're true partners with us in this business, and we really share with them in our financial success as a company. You know, you can see here our top 20 authors average nearly $500,000 a year in annual royalties. And our top author last year made over $2 million in royalties. And it's a sign of the level of quality that comes in the content from these people. And because we're building a scalable platform, you know, we don't need tens of thousands or hundreds of thousands of authors to serve the need. We want the best of the best, you know, that are truly the technology experts creating a lot of this stuff out there in the world. And those are the people we deliver up to our customers through this author network. Our mentor network looks similar, the ones that are answering the questions. But this is a much broader network. Here we do need more people to answer all the questions. And we want to just be able to ensure that the person we deliver up to answer the question knows more than the person asking the question. Well, and how do we know that? Through our assessment platform. So the data drives all of this decision making for us behind the scenes in our algorithms to connect the right people at the right time in their learning journey. If you look at Pluralsight and browse through our catalog, you'll see that we cover everything that a company would need to create something. Just think about it that way. What are the skills you would need to create a new product, whether it's a digital product or a physical product? We cover all of those skills. So you have things like software development. You have infrastructure, IT, hardware, security. You have things like cloud computing, mobile. You have design skills, both hardware design, physical design, as well as software and digital design. And we cover that. What we don't cover are things like soft skills or compliance training, things that a typical HR department would buy. In fact, we don't actually sell to the HR department. We sell to the CIO, the CTO, the VP of engineering, the VP of design. Those are our customers. Those are the people who really understand what Pluralsight has to offer the world, because we're creating the creators that work for them. And ultimately, as you look into the future and look at what Pluralsight is doing, we are committed to closing this global technology skills gap. And we're doing it in a way that will fundamentally change the future trajectory of our race. And with that, I'll pause and do some Q&A. So we have mics. If you would wait for the mic to come to you, that'd be fantastic. So we have one right here. We have 6 minutes left.
Well, since I have the mic,
Yeah.
Just for clarity, you said you market to corporations, and how do they select their own students? What's the student selection process for that?
Yeah, we offer basically, we serve 4 segments. We have a B2C segment, SME, commercial, and enterprise. Okay. And our revenue is fairly equally distributed across those 4 segments today, but the enterprise segment is outpacing the rest by far. And so in the enterprise, when we go in to sell, we would sell to a CIO or a CTO with a site-wide solution, typically. And then they would make it available to all of their developers or IT professionals or designers within the organization. In some cases, if we have a land and expand entry into the corporation, then it would look a little different, where we might sell to a product team first, and then we expand to the entire engineering organization, and then on to the entire IT organization. So we have a few different motions, but the top-down enterprise would be typically enterprise-wide. Yes, right here. And well, where's the mic? Let's do some mic efficiency here. Okay, right here.
Hello, I'm Moise from Peru in Mexico. We actually use a product in our company and we like it a lot.
Okay, thank you.
My question is, which elements of the in-person instruction can absolutely not be replicated in an online platform? So what do you miss from those days when you were a teacher?
It's the body language that occurs in the classroom. Like as an instructor, you can kind of look at the class and you can tell who's getting it and who's not. Like there is no person there watching what's happening in the online world, right? Which is why the self-assessment piece is so critical. Like it really places responsibility on the student to self-assess. Like if they're really committed to learning something and growing, they have to assume that responsibility. Then we have to give them the tools they need to be able to measure that. Does that make sense? And then when they get stuck, it's up to them to then proactively reach out to say, hey, someone help me. Because that teacher's not there to kind of see it. Does that make sense? And so we've provided those tools as best we can through this digital experience to replicate that. But it does require the student to assume more of that. I think there was one over here now. Was it right there? And then we'll jump back over here. Yeah,
Hi,
please.
this is Alper from European Leadership University. My question is about learning checks. I think you mentioned about learning checks earlier. When you work with corporations, they are very critical about and keen about the learning outcomes and competencies. How do you show evidence to them that there's capability there at the end of the program?
Yeah, great question. So we offer two things actually. We have a learning check, which is something that happens at the end of a course to ensure that you understood and comprehended the concepts and learning objectives of that course. Then we have a broader skill assessment, which is on the topic, the skill. And we're actually assessing their knowledge around that skill relative to the rest of the market. The way our score works is the score actually benchmarks you just like an SAT does. And like when a student takes the SAT, it's benchmarked against the population of all SAT takers, right? It uses item response theory as the formal methodology behind measuring and producing the score. We use that same methodology, IRT, item response theory, and we layer some Bayesian math on top of it to speed up the process at which we can actually determine the score. So that's why we can do it in 5 minutes. And we believe the accuracy of that serves the need for our objective with the product. But the bottom line is the score is a benchmark relative to the rest of the market. So if you get a 285 out of 300 on JavaScript, that tells me you're in the top 1% of knowledge around that skill of all JavaScript developers in the marketplace. That means a lot to a company. And for a company to be able to see how their entire, if you just take any company and ask them, okay, what are your top 10 technology skills that are important to your future? If we can benchmark them, their organization, relative to their competition in the marketplace, think how valuable that would be. Yeah.
Yeah, just a quick question on content. Just how much do you have to refresh and how much that costs and how often?
So the content engine is one where we have this army of authors, and they're incentivized to keep the content up to date because there are royalties attached to it. And so everything is designed to ensure that we're producing the most relevant content out to the market, to the customer, as quickly as possible. Our entire model is engineered around that. And so it all depends on the frequency at which the content, the technology behind it changes. And we saw that it changes pretty quickly. So it's a case-by-case thing, but in some technologies, because of the nature of the changes, like we can't actually just update the course. We have to just ship a new one. And so we just ship a new one. And the old one stays in place as long as it's still relevant to some audience out there in the world that may still be using the old one. So we have to be really aware of how the technology is moving and how people are adapting and adopting it. And if it becomes completely deprecated, like no one can use that technology anymore, like say something like Silverlight dies, goes away, or Flash, Adobe Flash, then we would just take it out and it's gone. But in some cases, they're just minor updates. And the authors that we have agreements with us to keep that content up to date. And so they're shipping new versions of it, every month, every quarter, every year, depending on the frequency of the change, to make sure that we're delivering the highest quality, most relevant content to our audience all the time. And we have to stop there because I'm out of time. Thank you very much for coming.